Good evening, coaches, or good morning, depending on when you're watching this video. This week, we're asked to transform our last week's pseudocode into JavaScript, Python, and facultatively Ruby. Sadly, I was unable to complete Ruby due to a lack of time and experience, but I'm confident that what I did with Python and JavaScript made not finishing Ruby kind of worthwhile. As this was based around last week's work, generally follows the same structure as I did back then. I'm going to start off by showing you how I did my JavaScript. So up here we have all the classes of the rocket elevator, which I'm going to go into more detail in a minute. And down here is a scenario section, which will allow to test and certify that my code is functional, which will make me able to show you the result of all this work. So as you can see, when I run my code, my scenario will pop up and show us how it will proceed. It will start off by telling us someone on floor 3 wants to go to the 7th floor. It will then evaluate the best elevator considering their position, their direction, and their status, and send the elevator that's the closest to the client to raise a request floor and bring him to his desired location, which will be the 7th floor in this case. So the way it works is just like I explained it last week, but this time I coded it in. So basically here is where I created a bunch of function like create floor button list and elevator list, which will define how lists will work. I then did a request elevator, request floor, and best elevator function, uh, which will serve to make the program understand which elevator relative to the scenario given will be the quickest to respond. Um, we then move to the elevator class, and here is where we define what's going to happen once the program found its best elevator. Here, if you look closely at my move elevator function, you can see that if the elevator position is equal to the requested floor, it will stay where it's at and simply open its doors. If the elevator is higher than the requested floor it will go down, and if it's lower, it will go up until destination is reached, of course. I then defined the next sequence so that if the elevator, which is right there, if the elevator is in any kind of movement, the direction and position will be updated so that, you know, priorities will work in the scenario. Finally, I defined my last two class, panel button and floor button. And here, of course, is scenario from earlier, as you can see, if you want to look into it. So yeah, my Python works basically the same way. I can show you very quickly, just with different syntaxes, basically in vocabulary. So here is a run through my code. And I'm gonna run it in a second. It's not exactly the same, of course, since it wouldn't work if it was all the same. Whoops, that's not the right thing to do. Run Python file, and here we go. So it's not exactly the same, but it's extremely similar, and I mean, it works. So thank you for watching, and see you next week.